A little disclaimer before the show starts. This is not a professional review, like at all. I'm just trying this out. In between doing some actual fucking animation, I wanna try different ways of producing content. So with the Tau journals already a thing, I wanted to try my hand at the simple game review. Although I end up not touching upon a lot of stuff, I hope you'll enjoy it nonetheless.
Oxenfree is an interesting little mystery game by Night School Studio, revolving around a little friend group on the small Edwards Island, a former military base turned tourist attraction. Despite the kitsch location and premise, Oxenfree turns out to be an engrossing experience. For the most part. That sounds really obtuse, but here's my reasoning. Oxenfree is a beautiful game, with backgrounds that harkens back to Ivan Earle and Mary Blair's work. And add to that, great sound design that only adds to the game's tone. And for some reason, I really just love the xylophone sound the pause menu makes. Now, when talking about sound, you must also talk about the voice acting, because there's a lot of that in the game.
Wow, that's actually kind of funny.
Which for the most part was great. It wasn't overacted or underacted for that matter, everybody sounded like sulky teenagers, except maybe for Ren. But therein lies my problem, everybody's voices sometimes melded together. If it wasn't for the subtitles and the little color cue speech bubbles in front of whoever is speaking, I would have lost track of who was talking right from the beginning. I feel like the speech bubbles was a compromise to let the background take center stage. It feels like the only reason everything is so zoomed out is to feature the background artist's work. Which is nice and all, I mean the backgrounds are nice, but I feel like that weakens the tone of the game. When everything is so far away, you become distanced from the characters and whatever they're experiencing. Which could sometimes lead to comical scenarios, to say the least. At least in my opinion. It felt kinda comical when the characters reacted to something scary by doing a little jump. And a gamey abstraction of speech materialized in front of their faces. Something that might or might not have been solved by freeing up the camera to be able to move around in the scene when the situation demanded it. Like when the ghosts showed up and possessed Alex's friends. Maybe in general, just zoom in a little further so we could see the characters' mouths when they were talking instead of the speech bubbles. I mean, you can still make beautiful backgrounds while being closer to the characters, just look at what Broken Age did. But that's almost the only thing the game had going for it in my opinion. The beginning serves as a nice icebreaker for Ren, Alex and her new stepbrother Jonas, and later on also Clarissa and Nona. So immediately the game establishes its characters and the bonds between them, which in turn tells us that this game is gonna be about them and those bonds. But also that this game is full of awkward ledge climbing that feels unnecessary and really only acts as a time padding device in the end. But I want to come back to the dialogue, the glue of the game if you will. The dialogue system, as in some games, can be a bit confusing at times. Most of the time it functions as it should, and if anyone is interrupting someone, the timing's really nice, which to me is kind of impressive. You wouldn't think interruption timing would be something to be impressed about, but here I am. The timing in a lot of games, although only Skyrim comes to my mind, tell me if I'm remembering this wrongly, is just way too slow to sound like organic dialogue. But back to Oxenfree. When you as Alex partake in conversations, you get this nice 3-choice tree of things to say. It's mostly on a spectrum from being nice to neutral to mean / sarcastic. And is it just me, or is most of the dialogue in this game really snarky and sarcastic sounding? A nice thing about the dialogue though is that it really felt organic throughout the game, and you could really feel the desperation and the spontaneity the game seemingly went for in the characters. So thumbs up for that. The dialogue recordings themselves is of a very nice quality. Only very few times did it sound like it was recorded in different conditions, and only really with Nona for some reason. I might be imagining that though, but something I'm sure I didn't imagine was that I could hear the room reverb sometimes. It wasn't something that really ruined the experience for me, but it just got more noticeable the more you played the game. Anyways, sorry about that. And since I'm a sprouting animator, I feel like I should give my 2 cents about the animation. It's fine, it works, the characters move fluidly from frame to frame. All of them just seem to move the same way. I think it's a situation where the riggers of the game characters just made one scalable rig for all the characters and animated it once for all the loops and ledge climbs. The only really differentiating animations are the talking ones. And I think the animation department would have been the one they would have really strived to match the tone of the game, because a lot of the time the animations are kind of bland and doesn't really add a whole lot to the game. It just functions and looks like acceptable. They could have added more contextual animations. But still, every animation works, you understand what they're doing, and you can see what's going on. I just feel like they dodged a lot of bullets with the zoomed out camera view, especially with facial animations and lip syncing. And now to touch upon the story, it's a mystery novel through and through. It feels like one of those mystery novels you would pick out for the incessant reading classes in elementary school because it had an interesting and alluring front cover, only to find that it actually was a nice book. Maybe that wasn't really what you expected, but yes, that actually kind of happened to me once. Anyway, the story is really nice, but also very kids friendly. Not that that is necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but just so you know what you might spend your 19 something euros on. I realize this review has kind of a negative tone to it, but I really did like Oxenfree. I just think I've become really desensitized to a lot of stuff, and it's become more and more hard to suspend my disbelief the more saturated the entertainment market becomes. And with the constant focus from every outlet on tropes, cliches and other repeating trends, it only adds to the problem. Originality is virtually impossible to come by, so new things shouldn't be met with disdain because it looks like something you might have seen before. We should strive to be more open to new things and don't be so judgmental from the start. And if you don't realize, I was mostly talking to myself there, I think, because I think that's ultimately how I feel about Oxenfree. It feels unique and inspired, but also derivative in other places. It's a nice game by a team with what I suspect was too big a scope for their manpower. So that's that, tied up with a nice little bow. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to see a man about a dog.